I can feel the purpose in that. It's what turns a career into a calling.
Canada, whether you're a good athlete or a bad athlete, people usually try to give you the resources, try to give you the attention as much as possible, whether you're good or not. Every single time when I experienced something like that, I had to ask to myself, am I enjoying this?
Most people see medals and trophies, but not the early mornings, the loneliness, the
Mhm.
sacrifice.
Proving people that they're wrong. That's what drove me.
It's crazy how one small moment, one decision can shape the entire direction of our lives. Constant chase for more success, more recognition. How do you personally define enough? Welcome back to Beyond the Summit, the show where we explore how health fuels wealth and how wealth unlocks freedom. Because true freedom isn't about escaping life, it's about designing one you don't want to escape from. Today's guest is someone who embodies resilience, passion, and quiet strength. A former national team swimmer who's now shaping the next generation of athletes as an associate coach at Brock University. From competing on the national stage to coaching at one of the Canada's top university programs, Gokhan Bozygit has lived the full arc from chasing podiums to finding peace, purpose, and presence. But what I love most about Gokhan's story isn't about swimming. It's about transformation. How chasing performance can eventually lead to something much deeper: health, meaning, and the freedom to live life on your own terms. So whether you are an athlete, entrepreneur, or anyone hungry for more from life, this episode is for you. We are talking about resilience, identity, and how to redefine success without losing yourself in the process. Gokhan, it's truly an honor to have you here, my friend. Welcome to Beyond the Summit.
It's a pleasure to be beyond the summit.
Wonderful. Before we dive in, I like to start every episode by grounding us in the presence. What's been on your mind lately? Whether it's from training life or just where your energy's at right now.
Right now, I think what's been on my mind is mainly about two things: the work and establishing myself as an adult in the current world that I'm living in. So, essentially, the work enables me to be the person who I am or establish myself in the places that I would like to be. So I mainly focus on my success or my presence in there. And then, in order to do that success and presence well, I need to spend more time and spend more efforts, or um, essentially ensure that I'm putting quality on first, you know? So that's essentially my focus has been pretty much, am I doing quality work? Is the work I'm doing sufficient enough for quality?
Yeah, I totally get that. It's interesting how the space we are in mentally always sets the tone for everything that follows. Let's rewind for a second. Take
Mhm.
me back to Turkey. Do you remember the first moment when you realized swimming or even a sport itself could become something more than just a hobby?
Oh, yes. Yes, definitely. I mean, the first time I started to realize that was probably around when I was 12, 13. That's the part where I start to slowly collect the fruits of my efforts essentially in the competitive sport, right? Like it was the moment that I stepped into the head coach's group at that point. He was just like, yep, I would like to have you as a distance swimmer in the group. So that part, training with the record holders, training with the people who are medaling in nationals, etc., that opened my eyes and said, I kind of want to be that person who gets the success, who gets the spotlight, who gets through this different unique experiences, right? So that's when I start to realize that I can probably make this something bigger.
I love that. It's crazy how one small moment, one decision can shape the entire direction of our lives. So when you were a kid chasing your dream, that dream of becoming that successful champion,
Mhm.
what was driving you the most? The love for water, the competition, or something deeper that you couldn't quite name yet?
I can tell you that very easily. Proving people that they're wrong. That's what drove me. at that point.
So, can you elaborate a little bit more? How? Tell
Of
me more.
course.
Yeah.
So, and this is where we go into the depth of the story a little bit. Prior to national team or national titles, etc., I was actually a horrible swimmer. The way that my journey started was I was a little kid who was scared of water, who wanted to play basketball, uh, was not good enough to play basketball, or was, as the elementary school coach said, too much of a gentleman to play basketball. So they directed me to swimming. I overcome my fear of water. And then when I was training in the competitive sport, I was not performing well till I was essentially 14, essentially. Essentially, at a certain stage of my early swimming career as a teenager, the club that I was swimming for gave me two choices. Hey, you're not performing well for us. You can either go for sport for life or you can go play water polo. That's the options. And that was the part that, like, essentially, I think my mom kind of used it as a motivator a little bit. She's like, well, if you're not going to do this, might as well not do it at all and just stop it. And that's the part that I was like, okay, I have something to prove right now. I need to make sure that I'm going to continue with the sport for life, but I'm going to take myself out of this hole and try something different, try to create a different person who's successful at that journey.
That's so powerful. That deeper why often shows up long before we even understand it. Yeah,
Yep.
that's very true. It is interesting because most people see medals and trophies, but not the early mornings, the loneliness, the sacrifice. What's something success demanded from you that Ward never saw?
The loneliness was a big part. Like, I would say that, and we go into the famous Michael Phelps quote over here: eat, swim, sleep. That was pretty much what it was when I was in Turkey, actually. Whether it was extra dryland practices or early mornings or the sets that no one wanted to do, including myself, by the way. I did not want to do it too, but I knew I had to do it, kind of situation. And obviously the mental side of things, like when you're investing so much on this competitive journey of yours, you start to become alone because not a lot of people are doing this. So while your friends are saying, oh, we're going to go and have a bowling night or whatever it is, or we're going out after school, you can't do that. You don't have the choice to do that. You have to focus on what you're doing and what's the bigger craft, etc. if you're going to dedicate yourself to it. At that point, I chose to do it. So I would say my life in Turkey was very isolated in that sense. I would say almost like, it's almost like the high school students having a job, right? Like I had to go to my job while my friends were having fun, kind of situation.
I can relate to that. That's real. People do not see the cost, just the highlight reel.
Yep.
Absolutely. Was there ever a point you thought maybe this isn't for me anymore? And if so, what kept you moving? What kept you not giving up? Uh yeah, please.
So I would say that there's multiple points in time like that, right? Like whether this is facing a very hard set or whether this is trying to beat your opponent or whatever, whoever you're racing and constantly getting knocked down, or whether this is being so successful, but being so burnt out at that stage. So there are different scenarios like that. I think the whole idea was every single time when I experienced something like that, I had to ask to myself, am I enjoying this? And is there anything else that I can channel my efforts to make it bigger or take into a new dimension essentially? And in my life, I never had that because I was very focused on swimming. So my efforts were directed in swimming. I know that I was growing it no matter what. So I decided to just focus on that, whether it sucked or not. I decided to continue to the path and see the end of it essentially.
Yeah. Okay. That moment of doubt is often the real resilience is born.
Mm-hmm.
And you're definitely a proof.
Thank
When
you.
did this shift happen from chasing performance to chasing peace? From being a swimmer to being yourself again?
That happened during COVID, actually, because so as you mentioned, I came to Canada, I did my varsity swimming, and when COVID hits, I was essentially at my fourth year of university in Canada. You get 5 years of eligibility. So that time I was just trying to figure out, okay, I can't train, so I cannot be the swimmer because of my nationality. I wasn't allowed to train at that point. I mean, Canada brought some rules, and like people only at the high level and Canadian can train at that COVID times essentially. So I wasn't able to do that. So at that point, I was almost forced to stop swimming. And then I had to reconfigure who I was and what do I do. I would say I almost had like a small existential crisis, as one would say. Like, okay, I used to only talk about swimming because I was good at it. Once that's out of my life, what am I even going to talk about? Who am I essentially, right? So that's the part where I start to think about and understand that, okay, I'm not only just a swimmer, I have this vast amount of knowledge in the sport. Why not try to do a master's on it and try to get a coaching certification and see if I can be still a part of that while I'm also discovering what I like, what are my hobbies, etc. kind of situation.
Beautiful. I can say that's when life starts to move from pressure to purpose.
Mhm.
You made a huge move from Turkey to Canada. That's not just geography, that's identity. What
Yeah.
part of you had to evolve in that transition?
Culture wise, it's very different, obviously. Like, the big thing is Turkish culture is very indirect. Turkish people don't want to get into conflict by just sharing their ideas. But in Canada, everything is more direct itself, right? If there's a message, if there's a lesson that needs to be learned, it's going to be told to you in a very straightforward way. So I needed to understand how that worked. And I need to understand, like, even if I'm working, I need to give my feedback that way as well. That was a big challenge itself. Other than that, the system itself is so different. Turkey, if you're not that person who's going to perform, they don't pay attention to you. They are saying they're essentially seeing you as like a stock price, as I can say. If you're a good stock that is increasing, people are going to start investing in you. But if you're not that, people pull everything back and you just tank essentially. In Canada, it's much different. In Canada, whether you're a good athlete or a bad athlete, people usually try to give you the resources, try to give you the attention as much as possible, whether you're good or not, right? So that's essentially how I start to change my lens towards the sport and change that towards my teammates essentially as well. There were people who were good teammates who were very fast, and there were people who were not fast. But regardless, that did not decrease their value in my mind when I switched to Canada versus in Turkey.
Wow, that's a deep transformation, and it takes courage to rebuild from ground up.
Mhm.
You've competed, coached, and studied at high level, but I'm curious, what does resilience look like for you now outside of sport?
I mean, it's a good question. I think it's overall just being a functioning part of the society is probably what the resilience looks for me. Like obviously outside of work, it's a different story. Work is very black and white. You're successful or not, you're resilient or not. But I think like at this point, it's more about being a functioning part of your family, society, friends, etc., being a contributor essentially or being successful to be able to set yourself up is what I would say.
I love that. It's less about bouncing back and more about staying centered, no matter what
Hmm.
comes.
Hmm.
So, on Beyond the Summit, we talk about how health fuels freedom. For you, what habits or mindsets protect your physical and mental health today?
It's a good
That's a
question.
good one.
It is a good one because, like, after especially swimming, I did stop being active for a while. It took me a lot to get back into being active. Still trying to, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I'm still not as active as I should be. But I think overall, it's just like you go into the basic guidelines of Canadian health. It's 30 minutes of physical activity, whatever it is, whether it's a walk, whether it's swimming, whether it's lifting in the gym, right? Like so all these different physical activities that just grabs your attention from the busy work life to outside just to empty your mind is I would say the channel that you can enable and just forget about everything else, right? I will tell you that my mental health was not in a good place when I was just focusing on work. because I was just focusing on, okay, I need to get this work done because I need more income right now, like all the financial stress, etc. Right. So that's essentially started to detriment me. And like now that I'm finding that I actually backscaled my work a little bit, I have more time to be more physical and more healthy. I'm like, okay, this is actually why I was doing this. It allowed me to channel stuff, right? Even when you were
Right.
an athlete, like the exercise was a good thing because it allowed you to step out of your daily life, just go into the pool and give that effort to something that's beyond physical, beyond mental, essentially. It was purely physical and it relaxed you because you were not thinking about anything else other than, am I going to make this interval or not? Right. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, exactly. Health isn't the goal. It's the vehicle for everything else. Percent. So there is this constant chase for more success, more recognition. How do you personally define enough?
My motto is never settle. I don't think we need to settle. Like enough is obviously, I would say more recognition, more success, more money, etc. These are good when you're living your life and you also have these success. That's how we define it, I guess. Then I think it's enough. But is it enough to settle, right? What do you want to see yourself like? Do I want to see myself as an Olympic coach one day? Sure. Yes, I would love to, right? So I would say like, for me, it's as high as like, as long as I can climb the stairs of the high performance ladder, I'm happy. That's settling enough for me. If there's any extra opportunities, I would need to think about it. That's kind of the situation. So to me, enough is whenever I'm happy at the place that I am, is what I would say, right? Whenever I feel like I don't need to move forward or I don't need to take the chance to more, right? So for example, for now, my job at Brock feels enough to fund my lifestyle, have a house, have a car, create a successful relationship with my family, right? All that stuff, like essentially my job or my high performance goals are my vehicle that suffices my needs. So if they suffice my needs, it's enough. If it doesn't suffice my needs, it's not enough, right? But for example, like if I'm looking at the performance goals wise and looking at like the level of athletes I coach mainly like provincial athletes and sometimes national athletes. Is it enough? No, it's not enough. I would love to have more national level athletes. I would love to have more international level athletes. So to me, if I reached out to the highest level I can reach, and if the vehicles I'm using is giving me a good lifestyle, that's enough. If it's not giving me a good lifestyle, it's not enough. I got to go more.
Yeah, that's powerful. Realizing that peace often leaves right behind the word enough.
Mm,
Yeah, I agree. So, and everyone has got their own definition of enough
mm,
based on what they're following and what they're chasing, what they want out of life.
mm.
Yeah, but at some point for me, so that peace is behind the word enough. Okay, so now let's enjoy it, or enjoy while you're taking this journey.
Yep.
When you've lived in the world built on discipline, how do you make room for joy, for a
Oh,
spontaneity? Yeah.
that's a tough question because I say that there's a ratio, I would say. The world that is built on discipline gives you about 90% of discipline, 10% of spontaneousness, in my opinion. So you cannot build spontaneity a lot into it if you're an athlete. However, obviously, you almost plan it ahead. You know that there are specific days that will be, there are specific days that you're going to be off. You know that, right? So you can choose to either take that day easy or be spontaneous about it and try to do spontaneous things on that day. So it's not fully spontaneous, but some level of spontaneity. Or you just build everything to discipline and you just go with the discipline saying, this is my social day. This is in my agenda, right? This is what I'm going to do. That's essentially how it is. And especially, I would say that like the lifestyle of the current working generation, I would say there's not a lot of room for spontaneousness. There's really not. Everyone is clock in, clock out, right? Either you're going to get the freedom, the financial freedom to do that, or You're just going to be essentially planning around it. It's priorities.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that's such a delicate balance when
Hmm.
discipline fuels joy instead of
Hmm.
killing it. That is mastery in my opinion. Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
and I think it's very hard thing to master.
It
Like
is
I don't think I
indeed.
mastered it.
What what gives you the deepest sense of fulfillment these days? The science, the coaching, or helping others discover their own potentials?
I think it's in the realm of helping others discover their potential. Like I think I get the fulfillment from people working hard towards their goals and finally accomplishing it. You know, it's a because I see the journey, I see the path, and I see the work that is being put in, and seeing someone collect the fruits and have their emotional moments makes me emotional as well. That is one of the big things I believe. As an example, last year we had this young gentleman who came to my group about 2 years ago. When he came to my group, he was not the best swimmer. He was not the best swimmer, barely good technique, etc. And we worked so hard on it. So many frustrations on his side emotionally throughout the road. And we essentially missed our last chance to make regionals. And then in the random meet that is like right after the qualification deadline, he decides to make it happen, you know? So then we essentially decide to try our shot with the comedy saying like, hey, would you be able to put us in? We just qualified one day later, blah, blah, blah. And to his luck, it worked out. He was able to go to the regionals. That was his biggest goal of the year. So the last 2 years, right? Seeing him getting emotional and fulfilled and satisfied made me feel satisfied as well. That's how I
I
can
can
say.
That's beautiful. So I can feel the purpose in that. It's what turns a career into a calling.
Yes. Yes.
Exactly. So do you think true freedom comes from achieving personal goals or from helping others reach theirs?
I think both. I think both. I don't think there's one or the other. It needs to be both. Because let's be real, if you're trying to fulfill others' needs, it's a great thing, but a person can lose themselves in it as well. And then you need to find a balance because if you can fulfill your own needs at the same time, then the true freedom comes in my opinion. Then you're not connected to one or the other. You're essentially elevating both at the same time and yourself on top of it. Right. So I would say that it will need to be both. I cannot pick one or the other.
That's a beautiful paradox because sometimes helping others climb becomes our own summit.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, So it's not kind of totally irrelevant subject, so it can be
Hmm.
from both. Yeah, I agree. When you think about mindset, what separates those who burn out from those who break through?
I think it's going to be so cliche to say this probably, but it comes into how bad do you want it? How bad do you want to be successful? Or how bad do you want to live a better lifestyle? Or how bad do you want to be a house owner at this age, etc. Right? Like, so it really comes in how bad do you want it? And are you willing to put the effort, even though you know if it's going to, that's the mindset difference. There are certain people or certain mindsets that does not strive breaking through that ceiling. They're okay with the comfort zone, which is completely fine. Anyone can be that person. And living in the comfort zone is a great thing, right? Everything is comfortable. Everything is safe. There's not a lot of risks. But then you can try to break the ceiling and try to take the risks that brings you higher, right? So that's the whole big difference essentially. If you have the risk tolerance, if you're willing to see the consequences, or if you're willing to achieve this higher reward, you try to take the risk, you try to live with the mental stress of it, etc., that enables you to achieve higher.
Yeah. In my opinion, it's rarely talent. It's that internal conversation we have when no one is watching.
I would say talent is something, but you can also train yourself to do that. You can train yourself to step back and realize what is more important. It's a personality skill, definitely. Like the ability to bounce back, especially after a hard time, is a very useful skill and useful talent if you have it. But sometimes you just learn it by hitting through walls and understanding that those walls are finally breakable.
Yeah, beautiful. So tell me about a time when you failed publicly or privately and how that moment ended up becoming one of your greatest teachers.
I would say that was national team. My last national team with Turkish national team was a big failure and a big win after. For reference, I do long distance events and I used to do butterfly essentially. And I went to national team for 1500-meter freestyle. That was my event. That's when I'm supposed to be successful. That's how I contribute team, etc. It's the Balkan Junior Championships, and I swam the worst 1500 ever swam. It's a public humiliation. It's a internal humiliation, whatever you call it. And the day after, so not the day after the race, I essentially was in the mood of screw this. I don't want to do it. I don't care about my other races anymore. I'm just gonna move on from it. I'm just gonna have fun with my friends at night, and then we'll see what happens tomorrow. The day after was 200 fly, which um, I was essentially seated like as like a number 8 guy. Like I have no chance of medaling or something like that. And suddenly something got into me. I guess not caring that much about the race and just focusing on having fun brought me the joy and drive to just succeed. And as a result of that race, like the race video is actually like one of my favorite things to watch right now. I was not even supposed to be winning the event, and suddenly from lane 8, from the top to finish, like from start to finish, I just won the race out of nowhere. And that's my only international medal that I have, right? So it's just understanding that sometimes us humans think so much and put so much pressure on ourselves that even if you're the greatest performer, if you're putting that much pressure on yourself, you are just essentially letting yourself down and getting crushed under the pressure. But the moment you learn that pressure is not important and having fun, enjoying the sport, enjoying the competitive environment is important, then you start to succeed.
Love that. Sometimes the failure just reroute us toward what was meant for us all along. And
Mhm.
that's exactly what happened to you. If you had to explain your true calling now in one sentence, what would it be?
Allowing people to be the best version of themselves. Sorry, enabling it.
That's such a grounded definition. You can feel when someone's living in alignment. Ah, that's beautiful. If wealth wasn't about money, what would it mean to you right now? And how do you measure it?
If wealth wasn't about money, it would be about the people you surround yourself with. It will be about people who make your life experience better.
How do you measure that?
I think you measure with the amount of people you have around you, whether it's a good day or a bad day, right? I think you measure it with the amount of people you have around you as a quality of people, I would say. Not as how many people you have around you, how popular you are, more like how many good friends that I have that I'm willing to share experiences, whether it's bad or not.
Exactly. So for me, so the real wealth is freedom of time, health, and peace of mind that can
Mhm.
come from, surrounding yourself, as you mentioned, nice people that you're aligned and you're, going well by surrounding yourself with those people. Mentally, you can feel great. You have something in common to share with those people. I
Yep.
agree. I can relate to that. So when you've lived your whole life chasing seconds, how do you learn to slow down and actually live in the moment?
Well, I would tell you this way. Your life is all about chasing seconds as an athlete. That's very true. You do that in practice a lot, right? You have your intervals, you have your target goals, etc. But on the other hand, each race is the individual time that is the moment. Sports is not a ones and zeros. There's always a variable in it. Whether you're fatigued, whether you're in a different competition, whether you have a different rival, right? So if you're not in the moment in the race, then you have a lesser chance to lose the race or to chase that seconds goal, right? So You have to be in the moment. You have to be reactive in the sport, in the race, so that you are essentially getting the goal you want. That being said, how do you slow yourself down? I think that's the part that I kind of suck. I would say that usually other people tell me to slow down because sometimes I try to push hard and try to accomplish so much in my day-to-day lives or in my personal goals that I just forget myself and I just go for it. And like people are like, that's enough. You gotta stop, right? Or like even that like 1 hour, 2 hours of at the end of the day that I get to relax. That's my version of slowing myself down. That's something that I don't need to think about anything else. I'm just gonna do whatever I feel like, essentially, right? That's my version of slowing down, I guess. But people usually tell me to slow down and make sure that like they're grounding me. That's why we go into the previous question, surrounding yourself with those people who are quality, right? Those people are telling you that, oh, you should probably slow down. This is not good for you.
Yeah, thinking about it, it's really wild how slowing down can sometimes bring the biggest breakthroughs.
Yes.
Interesting. So, in an age of constant comparison, how do you stay grounded and protect your own sense of contentment?
It's a very tough one. It's a very tough one. I can tell you that I, as a coach, gets compared a lot sometimes. And sometimes I cannot contain myself sometimes. I just have to live it inside me and say, okay, is this, is this a valid comparison? Right? Based on who I am, what I'm working, what I'm doing, is this a valid comparison? Is this making me relevant or irrelevant in that comparison? So that's something that I think about a lot. And I think it's all about seeking external lenses about that, right? Like if you're being compared to something, then maybe you're, again, going back to your circle and asking them, hey, this is what I'm like being compared to. This is what I'm being reflected. I'm not sure why I'm being reflected this way, but how, like, what do you guys see in this situation? Am I actually something like this? So that's one way to do it. The other one is, I would say that knowing that you're the only person who knows what you're talking about and what your ideas are. And you have the control of that. No one else can control that, right? So it's all about being confident in what you speak, what you think, and staying behind it sometimes. That's how I sometimes feel content.
I think that's gold. It's more about competing with yourself, not against
Hmm.
others.
Yes. Yes, definitely.
Okay. So, I want to talk about something that I can relate to. This is something that since I was a child,
Hmm.
I had special feeling toward water. Water
Yeah.
has a rhythm, a patience, a
Hmm.
surrender. What's one lesson that water has taught you about life itself?
Oof. Good question. I think philosophical wise, I would say that being like, again, for a swimmer, we're going to talk about swimmer mindset over here. That's essentially what I'm going with. But the water, the pool was there for me, whatever stage in my life I was there. Right? Whether I was having the most horrible day of my life, whether I was the happiest person of myself. The water was the only thing that I always got to share it with. And no matter, sometimes you're mad and you're going very aggressive in the water, and sometimes you're happy and you're very gentle in the water, right? No matter how you're aggressive or gentle you are, the water was always there. So sometimes you're going to be like the water in your personal relationships. No matter how the person you're interacting with is blow after blow going at you, or if they're sharing the most excitement thing, you gotta always be there and always be present and not as reactive. The more you react, the more it
Beautifully.
gets bad, right? So that's what I would say. Again, this is very philosophical right now, not my genre, not gonna lie, but that's how I would say I would shape it.
Beautifully said. It's like every lap become a metaphor for life.
I guess so. I guess so.
Yeah, after retiring as an athlete, how do you
Mhm.
ever struggle with identity and how did you rebuild the sense of self?
I did struggle with identity a lot. And that's when I started to discover the other sides of myself. Like when I stopped swimming, I was like, okay, what can I do? Let's do a master's, right? That was my science identity. Then I said, let's invest in coaching. That was my coach identity. And then I decided to focus on other already existing identities, right? The son, the boyfriend, or the uncle, or whatever it is, right? Investing in those relationships to build the identity, or trying different hobbies. Like I got into watchmaking out of all things. So I like to do the watchmaking and stuff. That's a part of my identity now, right? So all that different stuff allowed me to rebuild that brand or identity, I would say. It's obviously the athlete is no matter what, it's a part of myself. It's the biggest part of my life right now as a 28-year-old, like 12 years of my life was an athlete. I cannot just throw it away, but I can keep the mindset of the athlete and apply it to different identities.
Yeah, that's something so many people can relate to. The art
Mhm.
of becoming someone new without losing you, losing who you were.
Yes. Yes.
So what are the small, almost ordinary moments now that make you feel truly those moments that make you truly feel alive?
Boom. I think some of the like after toning down the work a little bit and toning down the athlete side eventually investing in those personal relationships and getting to spend time with those loved ones was truly made me feel alive on that one. Like I actually felt like a human rather than a machine. That was a big thing, right? And obviously also if you can turn your work life into a vehicle that fuels it as well, that also helps as well, right? Like seeing my athletes perform really makes me feel alive. Like seeing those guys succeed at something, I feel like a proud parent, right? That's what I feel like. So that actually makes me feel alive. Or sometimes being vulnerable. Being vulnerable makes me feel alive because I feel stuff, right? That's what you're getting there.
I love that. So, is it fair to say freedom really hides in those simple, quiet joys?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I believe that there's a there's a component that definitely hides in the simple joys. If you're able to enjoy simple stuff, you're definitely having a happy life. But current state of our world, there's a huge financial component and financial freedom of it. And for the freedom part, you need to work for it, right? Like the freedom is not just only enjoying that simple joys. Freedom is also working hard to get to those goals, working hard to get the financials, etc. Because finance is what I would say power, right? If you have that financial power, you have the power to be free in specific areas of your life. But obviously, can you be free without the financial power? 100%. You just need to choose which way of life you're going to live.
Yeah, and that differs from person to person. That's why everyone
100%.
has got a unique definition of freedom.
100%.
So, I love that. If your future self from 10 years ahead could whisper one sentence to you today, what do you think
Mhm.
he'd say?
I hope it's whispering me the lotto numbers, but probably not going to happen.
That was a good one.
I would appreciate it a lot. Not going to lie to you. I don't know. I think it would. I would want it to say
Based on
that. That
understanding of yourself, you know who you are. So
yeah,
then
like
you can kind of anticipate what's going to happen.
yeah, like I think I would say I would want them to tell me that one thing that I need to improve as a human being. I really would love to hear in that person's opinion what journey that person went through to crack it, so that I can crack it earlier.
There is a way in which wisdom travels backward. So you
Yep.
know where you want to be in 10 years.
Yep.
You actually break it down and move backward in order
Yep.
to take those small steps to be able to get there.
Yep.
Is there any place for you 10 years from now that you really know what it is you want to be there and you know
Mhm.
how it looks like, but walking backward, you want to take the first step? If you know what's that look like, can you walk us through?
I think in 10 years, I really want to see myself as a high performance coach, constantly being at nationals, constantly being at the high stage in national teams, etc. I think that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. So I
Oh,
already have taken the first step there. But I think in 10 years, I also want to see myself happier with a family, with a essentially we're going back to the people again. surrounded by the people I love, right? Creating a family with them, not only just my blood family. I'm talking about the friends, the girlfriend, whatever it is, right? I think in 10 years, I see myself settling down in my social life and trying to chase the highest levels with my work life. And the first steps are already taken, right? Like first step is coaching in a good level, investing in your craft, essentially understanding the key trend of the sport nowadays. And then social life is just all about investing in people, just investing in people, being there for them, trying to create those bonds, trying to create those relationships.
Okay. That being said, when you hear the word freedom, a couple of times we talked about it, during our
Yep. Yep.
conversation. But when you hear the word freedom, what does it mean for you? Not as a coach or athlete, but as a human being.
I mean, it has a face meaning, right? Like it's being able to do whatever you want. But I think it's all about the freedom, I would say, is more about being able to express yourself however you want, wherever you want, without hesitation, right? If you can do that, you're free. Then like there is no one touching you at that point because you're not counted as relevant as much. So I think once you're free to express yourself however you need to without affecting anyone else's life, I think that's freedom.
That's exactly the heart of what we explore here on Beyond the Summit. Freedom in your own definition. That's powerful. That's great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. For
No
for
problem.
someone listening or watching us right now, maybe chasing success, maybe lost in a comparison, what's one piece of advice you'd give to help them keep climbing?
I would say hard work beats talent. That's a big principle that I live by, right? Like a talent who doesn't work is never going to be as shiny, and if you work hard enough, you'll catch up talent. So for whomever is listening this, just keep striving, but know that the times are going to get tough sometimes. But always think about how bad do you want it? How bad do you want to be there in the spot that you want to? Or think about who are you doing this for? So I think that's essentially the only way that I was able to push through. So that's the advice that I would give.
That's such a needed reminder. It's not just about the summit, it's about the climb itself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about destination, put it another way.
No,
And it's
no,
about journey.
definitely not.
Yeah,
Definitely not.
exactly. So when you look back one day, what do you want your story to represent? Not just in swimming, but in life.
Um, that's a tough one. That's a tough one. I think I definitely would love to see like a career part of it, obviously, right? A successful coach, a successful mentor, etc. But I also would like to see just a good person, just overall a good person that people enjoyed being around and people have fond memories of it. I think that's pretty much as simple as that. Like if I think if the more complex you get, the less satisfied you are, the less free you are, in my opinion. Sometimes it's all about leaving a simple legacy, right? Good person, good coach who was always there every single step. I think that's sufficient for me.
Beautiful. That's the kind of legacy that inspires others to find their own summit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm really enjoying this. So before we wrap up, I always love asking this. Are there any books, movies, podcasts, or even quotes that have deeply influenced you that you
So
want to share with the audience?
I will say the movies wise was a movie that always influenced myself. It's the story of a boxer. It's completely fiction, but essentially this boxer who loses everything and finds a way to build back up to get back to the championship belt. And those kind of stories always something that I can relate to a lot. So that's what I usually recommend people to watch that. If people are looking for a good coaching movie, Days of Thunder, Dave has recommended that to me, and that was also a very good movie itself that I watched. And I was like, okay, this actually teaches a lot of coaching lessons over there on how to manage an athlete who is who is a my way or die kind of person. How do you manage that? So that was the essentially The importance of trust was the message over there that I actually liked a lot. But I would say those two movies have been so far the biggest impact for me.
And this has been such a meaningful conversation, from your
Mhm.
journey in the pool to your reflection on life and freedom.
Yep.
There is so much here that reminds us what Beyond the Summit's really about: living fully, intentionally, and on your own term. Thank you
Yep.
so much for your time and for the incredible contribution.
Thank you, Amir. Thank you. It was a pleasure to be on the Beyond the Summit. I hope that my experience touches on someone's life in the way that they needed to. But it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to share.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.